Rowan Blake had been invisible his entire life. 23 years old, and he'd spent every single one of them being Thomas Blake's son,
You
the
shouldn't have come
quiet
back
kid who
here.
couldn't live up to the legend of his father, the best cattle breeder in 3 counties
I'm here
before
for
a
what's
tractor
mine.
accident took him 5 years ago. But today was different. Today, Rowan stood at the Hartwell County Fair Livestock Pavilion with Copper, a 2-year-old Hereford bull he'd raised himself from a rejected calf, trained with patience nobody thought he had, and transformed into something extraordinary. Copper wasn't just beautiful. He was gentle, intelligent, uniquely marked with a perfect copper-colored patch across his face that looked like a sunrise. Rowan Blake? A man in his 40s approached, wearing expensive boots and a belt buckle the size of a dinner plate. "I'm Dalton Ward. Been hearing about this bull of yours for months. Mind if I take a look?" Rowan's heart raced. Dalton Ward owned the Ward Cattle Company, one of the largest breeding operations in the state. If Ward bought Copper, the price would be enough to pay off the farm's debts, save the house his mother was about to lose, maybe even keep his younger sister Mara in college. "Of course, sir." Rowan led him to the exhibition stall where Copper stood calmly, his distinctive marking catching the afternoon sunlight streaming through the pavilion windows. Ward circled the bull slowly, examining every angle with the practiced eye of someone who'd evaluated thousands of animals. "Your father would be proud," he finally said. "This is exceptional breeding stock. How much are you asking?" Before Rowan could answer, a woman's voice cut through the moment like a knife. "Dalton, darling, I didn't know you were interested in amateur projects." Camille Thorne, 52 years old, owner of Thornewood Ranch, the largest operation in the county, and the woman who'd been systematically trying to buy Rowan's family farm for the past 3 years. She wore designer jeans that cost more than Rowan's truck payment and a smile that never reached her cold blue eyes. "Camille." Ward nodded politely but without warmth. "I'm looking at quality stock, not amateur anything." "Really?" Camille approached Copper, her expression shifting to concern. "Because I heard some troubling rumors about this particular animal. Health issues, temperament problems." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through it. "In fact, I have a report here from a veterinarian who examined him last month." "That's not true," Rowan interrupted, his voice shakier than he wanted. "Copper's never had health issues. I don't know what report you're talking about." Dr. Adrian Chen, very reputable. He noted several concerning indicators during a routine county livestock inspection. Camille showed her phone to Ward. "Possible genetic defects that could pass to offspring. Signs of neurological instability." Rowan felt the ground tilt. "Dr. Chen never examined Copper. I've never even met Dr. Chen." "Are you calling me a liar?" Camille's voice turned ice cold. "In front of witnesses?" A small crowd had gathered, drawn by the confrontation. Rowan recognized faces, neighbors, other farmers, people who'd known his father. They were watching, judging, waiting to see if Thomas Blake's disappointing son would crumble under pressure. Dalton Ward looked uncomfortable. "Camille, if there's any question about the animal's health—" "There isn't," Rowan said desperately. "I have all his vet records from Dr. Sarah Mendez. She's certified, she's examined him monthly since birth." "Sarah Mendez?" Camille laughed, a cruel, dismissive sound. "That woman barely passed her boards. Her license is under review, did you know that? For improper documentation practices." That was news to Rowan, and from Ward's expression, it was news that mattered. "I'm sorry, son," Ward said, stepping back. "I can't risk my operation on an animal with questionable health records. If this gets sorted out, give me a call." He walked away, and with him went Rowan's last hope of saving everything. Other potential buyers who'd been watching melted away like ice in summer. Within minutes, Rowan stood alone with Copper, the afternoon sunlight now feeling like a spotlight on his failure. Camille remained, her victory complete. "You should have sold me that farm when I first offered, Rowan. Your father's legacy deserves better than a boy who can't even manage a simple cattle sale." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping. "By tomorrow, I'll make sure every buyer in the state knows about Copper's issues. That bull will be worthless. And when your mother can't make the mortgage payment next month, I'll be there to buy the property. At foreclosure prices, of course." She walked away, leaving Rowan standing in the debris of his destroyed future. The fair continued around him. Children laughing at the petting zoo, the smell of fried food from vendor stalls, the distant sound of country music from the main stage. Normal life, proceeding as if Rowan's world hadn't just collapsed. He pressed his forehead against Copper's neck, fighting tears. "I'm sorry, boy. I tried." Copper made a soft sound. Not quite a moo, more like a gentle rumble. The bull had always been unusually vocal, communicating in ways that seemed almost deliberate. As the afternoon faded into evening, the crowd thinned. Exhibitors loaded their animals, families headed home, vendors closed their stalls. By 7 p.m., the livestock pavilion was nearly empty. Rowan should have loaded Copper and driven home to deliver the bad news to his mother, should have started figuring out where they'd live after losing the farm, should have done a lot of things. Instead, he just stood there with his bull, paralyzed by defeat. That's when Copper did something strange. The bull, usually calm and stationary, suddenly became agitated. He pulled at his lead rope, not frantically, but insistently, like he wanted to go somewhere specific. His head turned toward the far end of the pavilion, toward the administrative building where fair officials had their offices. "What is it, boy?" Rowan asked. Copper pulled harder, making that deliberate rumbling sound again. His eyes, surprisingly intelligent for a bull, locked onto something in the distance. Rowan followed his gaze and saw it. A man leaving the administrative building, carrying a briefcase. A man in his 30s wearing a white coat. Dr. Adrian Chen, the veterinarian Camille had claimed examined Copper, but Rowan had never seen this man before in his life, had never brought Copper anywhere near him, which meant Camille's report was fabricated, which meant she'd paid someone to create false documentation to destroy Copper's value. Rowan's grief transformed into something sharper. Anger. He watched Dr. Chen walk toward the parking lot, presumably heading to his car. Camille's Mercedes was still parked near the pavilion entrance. She was probably inside schmoozing with fair officials, cementing her reputation as the county's leading cattle expert. Copper pulled at the rope again, more insistently. The bull wanted to move, wanted to go somewhere. And suddenly, Rowan understood. "You want to show them, don't you?" he whispered. "You want to prove what you really are." He unclipped Copper's lead rope, a crazy idea forming. The bull immediately walked, not ran, walked with deliberate purpose, straight out of his stall and toward the administrative building. Rowan followed, his heart pounding. By the time they reached the building's entrance, a small crowd had formed. People pointed, surprised to see a massive bull walking loose through the fairgrounds. Copper stopped directly in front of the administrative building's glass doors. Through them, Rowan could see Camille inside, talking to Fair Director Hunter Miles. The bull lowered his head and bellowed, a deep, resonant sound that echoed across the grounds and could probably be heard half a mile away. Then Copper did something no one expected. He lifted his right front hoof and struck the ground 3 times, deliberately, like a signal. Then he turned his head to the left, toward the parking lot where Dr. Chen's car was parked, and bellowed again. "What's that bull doing?" someone in the crowd asked. Copper repeated the gesture. 3 strikes with his hoof, turn to the left, bellow. It looked almost like communication, like he was trying to tell them something. And that's when Rowan saw it. The thing that would change everything. On Copper's neck, partially hidden by his thick coat, was a small mark Rowan had never noticed before. Not a scar or a brand, but something else. Something that, in the fading evening light, became suddenly, shockingly visible. A tattoo. Numbers and letters. An identification code. But it wasn't Rowan's code. It wasn't registered to him at all. It was registered to Thornewood Ranch, to Camille Thorne. Copper had come from Camille's operation. Somehow, someway, this bull, the one Rowan thought he'd raised from a reject calf, was connected to her. And judging by how desperately Camille had worked to destroy his value today, that connection was something she absolutely did not want anyone to discover. The crowd grew larger as Copper continued his strange display. The bull struck the ground rhythmically, turned his massive head toward the parking lot, and bellowed again, louder this time, as if demanding attention. "Someone get that animal under control." Fair Director Hunter Miles emerged from the administrative building, Camille Thorne close behind him. Camille's face had gone pale. Her eyes locked onto Copper's neck, onto the tattoo that Rowan had just discovered. "Rowan, what are you doing?" Hunter demanded. "Get your bull—" "He's not just mine," Rowan interrupted, his voice steadier than it had been all day. He pointed to the identification mark on Copper's neck. "Look, that's a Thornewood Ranch registration tattoo." The crowd pressed closer. Mason Reed, an old cattle broker who'd known Rowan's father, stepped forward with reading glasses. "He's right. That's Thornewood's registration code. I've processed enough of Camille's stock to recognize it." Camille's expression shifted from shock to calculated calm. "That's impossible. I've never seen this bull before today." "Then how did he get your ranch's tattoo?" Rowan asked. "Obviously forged. You're desperate to save your pathetic sale, so you're making wild accusations." But her voice lacked conviction. Copper bellowed again and did something even stranger. He walked directly to Camille and stopped inches from her, lowering his head in what looked like recognition. "He knows you," Rowan said, the pieces clicking together. "This is one of your bulls. But how did he end up with me 5 years ago?" Mason Reed was scrolling through his phone. "I keep digital records of every transaction I've brokered. Let me check Thornewood's sales from 5 years back." His fingers moved quickly. "Here, May 2020. Thornewood Ranch sold off 12 calves, described as defective stock, unsuitable for breeding program. Sold to a livestock liquidator for slaughter prices." "I never sold defective calves," Camille snapped. "Actually, you did," Mason continued, reading. "I remember now. You had a minor outbreak of pink eye in your herd. Rather than treat it and risk your reputation, you sold off the affected calves and 3 others as a cover, made it look like a routine culling." Rowan's mind raced back 5 years. His father had bought a sickly calf from a livestock liquidator, paid almost nothing for it because the animal was near death. Thomas Blake had nursed it back to health, and that calf had been Copper. "You threw him away," Rowan said to Camille. "Because of a treatable infection, you sold him for slaughter." "I run a premium operation," Camille said coldly. "I can't afford to have diseased animals in my herd." "But he wasn't diseased. He was sick temporarily, and you were too concerned with your perfect reputation to care." Rowan's voice grew stronger. "My father saved him, spent weeks nursing him back to health, turned what you considered garbage into this." He gestured to Copper, magnificent, healthy, the bull that had attracted Dalton Ward's attention. "So what?" Camille's mask was cracking. "Ancient history. Doesn't change the fact that the animal has questionable genetics." "Does it?" Mason interrupted. "Because I'm looking at Copper's lineage now. His sire was Thornewood Monarch, your prize bull who died 3 years ago. His dam was Morningstar, who produced 6 champion offspring before you sold her to a breeder in Texas." Mason looked up from his phone. "Camille, this bull has better bloodlines than 90% of the stock in this county, including most of your current herd," the crowd murmured. People were taking out their phones, recording. "You knew," Rowan said, understanding flooding through him. "When you saw Copper today, you recognized him. You knew he was from your operation, knew his genetics were exceptional, and you realized that if he sold for top dollar, everyone would know you threw away a prize bull. Your judgment would be questioned. Your reputation as Montana's best cattle breeder would be damaged." Camille said nothing, but her silence was confirmation enough. "So you created a fake veterinary report," Rowan continued. "Paid Dr. Chen to claim he'd found health issues. Sabotaged the sale not because Copper was worthless, but because he was too valuable, and proved you'd made a terrible mistake." "This is slander," Camille finally managed. "I'll sue you for..." "For what? Telling the truth?" Dalton Ward had returned, drawn by the commotion. "Camille, I heard everything. You deliberately provided false information to manipulate a sale. That's fraud." Dr. Chen, who'd been trying to quietly leave, found his path blocked by several large farmers. He looked terrified. "Dr. Chen," Hunter Miles called out, "did you actually examine this bull?" Mrs. Thorne paid me to write a report. Said it was for insurance purposes. I didn't know..." "You didn't know it would be used to destroy a young man's livelihood?" Mason Reed's voice was harsh. "You didn't think that was odd?" The dominoes were falling. Rowan could see it happening in real time. Camille's reputation crumbling, her credibility evaporating, the respect she'd demanded for decades turning to contempt. But Copper wasn't finished. The bull turned away from Camille and walked back to Rowan, pressing his massive head against the young man's chest, the same gentle gesture he'd done 1,000 times before. Trust, loyalty, love, and the crowd saw it. "That bull chose him," someone said. "Chose Rowan over the woman who threw him away." "Thomas Blake's son," another voice added, "saved what she considered garbage and turned it into gold." Dalton Ward approached Rowan, his expression serious. "My offer still stands. 40,000 for Copper. But I have a better proposal. I want you to manage his breeding program. Keep him, use my facilities and resources, split the profits 50-50. You've got your father's gift, son. Don't sell it. Build on it." Rowan could barely speak. The farm debts. I'll advance you against future earnings. Consider it an investment in Blake Cattle Company, because that's what you're going to call your operation, and it's going to be legendary." As Rowan stood there, overwhelmed, trying to process how completely his life had changed in 15 minutes, Camille made one last attempt. "This is absurd. One bull doesn't prove anything." "It proves you're a liar," Mason Reed said flatly. "And I'm calling every buyer I know to tell them exactly what happened here today. By tomorrow morning, Camille, every cattleman in 3 states will know you fabricated veterinary reports to sabotage a competitor. Your word, the only currency that matters in this business, is worthless now." Camille's face twisted with rage and humiliation. She stormed away, her expensive boots clicking against concrete, her empire of respect crumbling with every step. Hunter Miles cleared his throat. "I think we need to re-examine some of Mrs. Thorne's previous complaints and interventions. Make sure this wasn't part of a pattern." As the crowd dispersed, buzzing with the drama they'd witnessed, Rowan remained with Copper. The bull had settled now, calm and content. "You knew," Rowan whispered. "Somehow you knew exactly what to do. How to expose her." Copper rumbled softly, that distinctive sound that was almost like speech. Maybe bulls couldn't talk. Maybe it was all coincidence. But as Rowan looked into Copper's intelligent eyes, he didn't believe that for a second. His father used to say animals saw truth that humans worked hard to hide. Thomas Blake had saved Copper because he saw value where others saw waste. And today, Copper had returned the favor, saving Rowan by revealing the truth at exactly the right moment. Justice served by a bull with a sunrise on his face and loyalty in his heart. By morning, the story had spread across the entire county. Rowan's phone buzzed constantly, reporters, buyers, even a producer from a regional agriculture show. But the most important call came from his mother. "Rowan, honey," her voice trembled with emotion, "3 people have already called wanting to buy cattle from us, and the bank manager just phoned. Someone paid off our entire mortgage." "What? Who?" He wouldn't say. Anonymous payment. "But Rowan, we're free. The farm is ours." Rowan suspected Dalton Ward, but when he called to thank him, Ward denied it. "Wasn't me, son, but I'd do the same if I'd thought of it first." The mystery deepened when Hunter Miles called with news that shook the entire community. "Rowan, we've been reviewing Camille's complaints and interventions over the past 5 years. You weren't her only target. She systematically sabotaged at least 7 other small ranchers, all people trying to compete with Thornewood, filed false reports, spread rumors, even bribed inspectors to fail their operations. Can you prove it? Dr. Chen is cooperating. Gave us everything, emails, payment records, a list of other consultations Camille paid him for. She's facing fraud charges, possibly conspiracy. Her ranch manager, Jared Hayes, just resigned and is talking to prosecutors. Apparently, he's been documenting her illegal activities for years, waiting for the right moment." Jared Hayes. Rowan remembered him, a quiet man who'd worked for Camille for over a decade. Why would he document everything but not report it? He told investigators he was waiting until he had enough evidence to destroy her completely. Said she'd ruined too many good people, and he wanted to make sure when she fell she wouldn't get back up. But why now? Why help me? Hunter paused. He said it was the bull. Said when he saw Copper recognize Camille and watched her try to destroy an innocent kid over her own mistake, he knew it was time. Sometimes it takes one clear moment of injustice to tip the scales. That afternoon, Jared Hayes showed up at the Blake farm, a man in his 50s with tired eyes and calloused hands. "I'm sorry I didn't act sooner," he told Rowan. "I watched her hurt a lot of people, including your father. She blocked him from breeding programs, spread lies about his stock, made his last years much harder than they should have been. I was gathering evidence, but I was also afraid. She's powerful." "Was powerful," Rowan corrected. "Was," Jared agreed with a small smile. "The state revoked her breeding certifications this morning. Without those, Thornewood is just expensive land and mediocre cattle. She'll have to sell, probably at a loss." And all because Copper wouldn't let her get away with it. Jared walked over to where Copper grazed peacefully in the pasture. "Your father saved this bull's life. Maybe animals remember that kind of thing. Maybe they find ways to pay back debts." He handed Rowan an envelope. "This is the documentation of every sale Thornewood made 5 years ago. Copper wasn't the only valuable calf she threw away. There were 3 others, all from champion bloodlines. I tracked them down. 2 didn't survive, but 1 did. She's at a small ranch in Wyoming, owned by a widow named Sarah Chen." Rowan opened the envelope, scanning the papers. "You've been planning this for a long time. Justice delayed isn't justice denied. It's justice perfected. I wanted to wait until I could help not just expose Camille, but also restore what she destroyed." He pulled out another document. "This is the deed to 40 acres adjacent to your property. Camille bought it years ago to prevent your father from expanding. I'm selling it to you for $1. I can't accept—" "Yes, you can. Consider it compensation for what she did to your family. And Rowan?" Jared's expression grew serious. "Your father would be proud, not just of saving the farm, but of how you did it. With integrity, even when you were desperate. That matters." As Jared drove away, Rowan stood with Copper in the evening light. The bull that had been thrown away, saved by a good man, and had somehow orchestrated the exposure of corruption that had plagued their community for years. "You're more than just a bull, aren't you?" Rowan said softly. Copper rumbled, that distinctive sound, and Rowan could have sworn the animal was agreeing. Sometimes truth hides in the most unexpected places. Sometimes justice arrives on 4 legs with a sunrise on its face. And sometimes the thing everyone discards becomes the thing that saves them all. 2 weeks later, Rowan drove to Wyoming with a trailer hitched to his truck. The address Jared had given him led to a small ranch on the outskirts of Sheridan. Weathered fences, a modest house, and a barn that had seen better days. A woman in her 60s emerged as he parked. "You must be Rowan Blake. I'm Sarah Chen." "Thank you for agreeing to meet me, ma'am." She studied him with sharp, knowing eyes. "Jared called. Said you wanted to talk about a cow I bought 5 years ago. Come inside. I'll tell you a story that'll make sense of everything." Over coffee in her kitchen, Sarah explained. "My husband was a large animal veterinarian, worked with Thornewood Ranch for 15 years until he discovered Camille was falsifying breeding records, claiming lineages that didn't exist to charge premium prices. When he threatened to report her, she destroyed him, got his license revoked on fabricated charges, ruined his reputation. He died 2 years later, heart attack brought on by stress." "I'm so sorry." "When Camille sold off those defective calves, I bought one. A heifer named Dawn. I knew her bloodlines were exceptional, knew Camille was just covering up her own negligence. I've been raising Dawn quietly, documenting everything, waiting for the right moment to expose what Camille really is. And Copper gave you that moment. Your bull started something that couldn't be stopped. Now I have a question for you. Dawn is pregnant, due in 3 weeks. The calf she's carrying has the same champion genetics as Copper. I'm too old to manage a breeding program, but you're not. I want to sell Dawn to you, not for money, for justice, for my husband's memory." Rowan felt the weight of it, the interconnected web of lives Camille had damaged, all coming together now in restoration. "I'd be honored." Sarah smiled. "Your father saved Copper. You're saving Dawn. My husband would have loved the poetry of that." As Rowan loaded Dawn into his trailer, The heifer's calm demeanor reminded him of Copper. These weren't just cattle, they were survivors, carriers of truth, instruments of justice. When he returned home, Copper was waiting at the fence. The bull watched as Dawn emerged from the trailer, and something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps, of shared history and survival. Dalton Ward arrived the next day with contracts and plans. Blake Cattle Company is official. You've got 2 foundation animals with bloodlines people will pay fortunes for. And the story? Rowan. The story of what happened makes this more than business. It's redemption. Mason Reed brought news that evening. Camille's selling Thornewood. Bankruptcy. No one will touch her after everything came out. The county's biggest cattle operation, gone because she couldn't admit a mistake. But Rowan felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only quiet gratitude that truth had prevailed. His father used to say the best revenge was building something beautiful from what others discarded. Thomas Blake had saved Copper. Copper had saved Rowan. Sarah had saved Dawn. And now, together, they were building something that would outlast all the lies. 3 weeks later, Dawn gave birth to a bull calf with a distinctive marking, a copper-colored patch across his face, like sunrise breaking through darkness. Rowan named him Justice. Some stories end with revenge. This one ended with restoration. Piece by piece, life by life, truth by truth. And it all started with a bull who refused to let injustice win. 6 months after the fair, Rowan stood in the same livestock pavilion where his life had changed. But this time, he wasn't desperate. He was demonstrating. The pavilion was packed. Ranchers from 5 states, agricultural students, even a documentary crew filming for a series on ethical breeding practices. At the center of it all stood Copper, calm and majestic, with Justice beside him. What you're seeing, Rowan explained to the crowd, isn't just exceptional genetics. It's what happens when we value animals beyond their immediate profit. My father taught me that. Camille Thorne forgot it. Dalton Ward stood at the back, nodding with approval. Beside him, Sarah Chen dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Jared Hayes, now Blake Cattle Company's operations manager, managed the logistics with quiet efficiency. Hunter Miles approached the microphone. Before we begin today's demonstration, I want to acknowledge something. Last year, this pavilion was the site of fraud and cruelty. Today, it's the site of redemption. The Blake Cattle Company has donated 10 calves from Copper's bloodline to struggling family ranches across Montana. Not for profit, for community. The applause was thunderous. A reporter raised her hand. Rowan, what happened to Camille Thorne? She sold Thornewood to a cooperative of small ranchers who couldn't afford their own land. They're running it together now, sharing resources and knowledge. Ironic, considering she spent years trying to eliminate small operations. Do you have any contact with her? Rowan paused. She sent a letter last month, apologizing. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will someday. Forgiveness is hard, but holding anger is harder. After the crowd dispersed, Rowan's mother and sister arrived. His mother hugged him tightly. Your father would be so proud, not just of success, of who you've become. Mara grinned. My brother, the cattle legend. Who knew? As evening fell, Rowan walked Copper and Justice back to their trailer. The fair lights twinkled, families laughed, children played. Normal life continuing. But Rowan wasn't the same person who'd stood here humiliated 6 months ago. That desperate, defeated young man had been transformed by truth, loyalty, and a bull who wouldn't let injustice stand. Copper rumbled softly. That distinctive sound Rowan had come to understand as contentment. Thank you, boy, Rowan whispered. For everything. The bull lowered his massive head against Rowan's chest, and for a moment, they stood together in perfect understanding. Not man and animal. Partners, family. Justice nuzzled between them, and Rowan laughed, the sound of genuine joy, something he'd thought lost forever. Thomas Blake had saved Copper from death. Copper had saved Rowan from despair. Together, they'd built something that would endure for generations. A legacy not of revenge, but of restoration. Sometimes the things we discard become the things that save us. Sometimes animals see truths humans refuse to acknowledge. Sometimes justice arrives quietly, on four legs with sunrise on its face, and sometimes, when everything seems lost, a bull refuses to let the wrong side win. Rowan loaded his animals, started his truck, and drove home to the farm that was no longer in danger, to the future his father had dreamed of and a bull had made possible. Behind him, the fair lights faded into darkness. Ahead, everything was illuminated.